At some point, I thought the Chicago Bulls might not have any gas left in the tank and might have to pivot in a different direction when it comes to Zach Lavine. But it appears that they have some traction. That came in from the Denver Nuggets a few days ago. And then here's why. On today's episode, I'm here to talk about why the Chicago Bulls can't allow the Denver Nuggets to walk away from Zach Lavine trade talks. We're going to talk about all that and a little bit more. But you got to hear the music first. Cognac, gang. Shy Bulls podcast with the Cognac Boys. I'm Cognac Boy Bobby, and I'm holding it down on today's daily episode. If you're tuned in with me for the first time, welcome in. Hit the like button, subscribe to the channel. And my members, my certified members, we flex on them. And welcome back to the show. Ladies and gentlemen, it is a scully day in the Midwest. Y'all know it was a little warm the last few days. It's cold as hell. Might cut through your skin. That's how cold that wind chill blowing through the Midwest right now. But let's talk about Chicago Bulls basketball, man. So it was reported a few days ago from Tony Jones and Sam Amick that the Nuggets are showing significant interest in Zach Lavine. And they even threw out a trade proposal that I thought was really, really intriguing for the sake of moving off of Zach Lavine, if that is the intention of the Chicago Bulls, and it appears to be so. Now, we know that it's been a while since we heard anything come out of any organization that wanted Zach Lavine. First, we heard that the Lakers might be interested. They shot it down. Then we heard that the Los Angeles Clippers might have a little bit of interest. Yeah, that was a no-go. The Pelicans, at one point, that was some team that we was trying to throw out there. And right now, it looked like the Pelicans are trying to move into a different direction. So right now, anything could still happen. But it appears that the New Orleans Pelicans want to move in another direction. These talks surrounding Zach Lavine have been silent for over a year and a half. And then, boom, Bobby, I get an opportunity to fire up the damn trade machine and see if these deals make sense for the Chicago Bulls that have been recently coming out these past 48 hours, not just regarding Zach Lavine, but some that include Lonzo Ball and some that include Nikola Vucevic. But it's interesting, and that's why we're talking about it. The Nuggets have shown that actual interest in Zach Lavine. One player that came up in that I was really intrigued by and still am intrigued by is Michael Porter Jr. I'm very intrigued on if you're getting rid of Zach Lavine, you get another young champion in the building, probably not the same caliber of player, but still a player that you get with a lot of talent and some potential upside. Of course, there are some worries when it comes to Michael Porter Jr. You talking about the injury history. We talking about him being typically in a limited role. How does his role appear to look if he is a Chicago Bull? Does he just kind of fit in and allow Montes Buzelis to continue to ascend, or does this guy kind of have like a Mikal Bridges offensive surge now that he moved on to another scene? And that's Chicago if Michael Porter Jr. is here. And that's one of the reasons why I'm sitting here letting you all know that this is the reason why the Chicago Bulls cannot allow the Denver Nuggets to walk away from the trade table. I'm not saying this is who you absolutely have to do a deal with, but I'm saying this is something that you need to continue to search out to see if this can entice other organizations who might be going through something and be like, hey, we can use a Zach Lavine right now. Or, hey, we ready to swing and bring in some more talent so we can continue to build this thing up. Maybe take a step or two forward in our development or our rebuild process. Or if you're a team that's really contending, do you explore these options to put the chips in the table and say, hey, we'll have Zach Lavine for the remainder of this season and 2 more seasons after this to absolutely get it done. And then if not, we wash our hands with the situation. So that's what it really looks like. And for those that are wondering what that trade proposal was Zach Lavine and Torrey Craig going to Denver, and then Michael Porter Jr., Zeke Naji, and a first in 2028 coming to the Chicago Bulls. Again, I'll say it again and reiterate the point that we talked about on yesterday's live. If you missed it, you missed out on a really, really good one with me, C-Dub, and Quentin. You know what I'm saying? One of our members over there on Chi-Town Sports Central. It was a really good episode, a really good show, and you missed out on it potentially. But we talked a lot of things about different teams and different things that goes on that could potentially happen with Zach Lavine and the Chicago Bulls. It was it. Do y'all think that it was crazy that some people, including my co-host C-Dub, was like, hey, I wouldn't be too mad if Zach Lavine stays? Do you be mad at people for that? I say no. But on the flip side, I say I seen enough. It's time to continue to move on and completely pivot onto that youth movement. But the point is bringing up all this, when you're talking about not allowing the Denver Nuggets to not walk away from the table, is because you need bidders at the auction. I can go out and say, hey, this is Shy Bulls auction. I'm finna auction off all my podcast stuff. But if none of y'all bidding on any of the equipment, what's the point of holding the auction? Right now, the Chicago Bulls just got their first bidder to walk in the building. You need more traction. You need more activity. And if this is kind of like the only one that kind of makes the most sense for you, you cannot allow them to walk away from the table. Now, talks are ongoing, or at least that's what we expect. It's probably, who knows? Could have been one conversation, could have been a few, could have been just rumors. But I say that you use this rumor, or if it's actual conversation, to go ahead and entice more teams to step up. That's what you need. It's a long shot. You know what I'm saying? To get any other team in the mix right now for Zach Lavine because of the money, because of the stigma that surrounded Zach Lavine not being a winning player, et cetera, et cetera. A number of things have come up. So you need some type of leverage. And you can leverage this type of offer to see if somebody else come out of the woods at the last minute before the bell closes or you in bidding, to see if somebody say, hey, Zach Lavine for 500. And then another person come in, Zach Lavine for 550. You know what I'm saying? Something like that. You need to keep these guys at the table, because if your goal is to get rid of Zach Lavine, you need buyers. You can want to get rid of somebody, but if nobody's calling the phone, if the phone's not ringing, if you're not in conversations, if you're not building the blocks to get a good deal done, it's all for nothing. So you got to continue this conversation with the Denver Nuggets, because I think that it meets your trade criteria, or at least I believe it meets the trade criteria that the Bulls set out. You get a young, you know what I'm saying? You get a young, nice player that's developed, you know what I'm saying? And Michael Porter Jr., you get your project piece, and not many two people are, filling the Zeke Naji. Maybe you give him an opportunity to prove himself. But it meets the criteria when you add that first round pick. It meets the criteria. Young player, first round pick, and a project. Is that not a win? You look at that situation, you say, hey, you live with it. Because if we keeping it a buck, when these trades happen, you don't necessarily get that value of player that you traded away. You don't typically get that back in the trade. You know what I'm saying? You don't typically get that back. Typically, you probably get some draft capital. You probably get some few players that you believe can go ahead and take that next step, or something that's close, but not necessarily the caliber of a Zach Lavine. When James Harden was traded, they didn't necessarily get the caliber of James Harden back in the form of players. They had to go out there, do their due diligence, utilize those picks, and then get those players that can eventually equate to the production of a James Harden, not necessarily in one individual, but maybe more so in totality. Because if you look at all the draft picks that the Houston Rockets have done since trading James Harden, they've picked and developed some nice young players, and they've been continuing to do that. We're talking about your Tari Easons, your Jabari Smiths, your Alperine Senguns, your Jalen Greens, all these players that, you know what I'm saying, maybe was around at the time that James Harden was going through that at his ending of his tenure with the Rockets. But essentially, once he was gone, they went out and found other talented players to kind of form a team and say, hey, we appreciate y'all over there in Brooklyn. Thanks for the draft picks. We did something good with it. So it's not going to be the ROI for my investors. It's not going to be immediate all the time. Sometimes this is something you got to wait a little longer for to reap the benefits, to see a nice return on ROIs. There is a reason why there are long-term stocks and short-term stocks. Short-term, you want to go ahead and you want to average up. You know what I'm saying? You want to improve your money, 20, 30, 40%. Long-term, you want those major gains, 100%, 120%, 150%, potentially on the money that you invested in said investment vehicle. So that's what the Chicago Bulls got to look into. That's what they got to figure out for themselves. Are you looking for more so the now, or are you looking towards the future? And then the question will be, how far down the future? So that's something that they will have to do. Now, it is a long shot, but I think that you got the Denver Nuggets to entertain what you're selling. They showed up to the auction. Now, I got to ask the question. I got to ask these questions. And y'all let me know if you agree or disagree. Number one, can you bring a division rival into the building or to the trade table and say, hey, Indiana Pacers, what do you have that you don't want that we can look at a Zach Lavine? Maybe not the best players, might have to get other guys involved because they don't have a lot of salaries that I believe that the Bulls will be interested in. No Obi Toppin, maybe a Miles Turner, but probably not because the Indiana Pacers ain't giving them up. So you might have to get another team involved to go after a Benedict Mathurin, if that's something that's on the Bulls' radar. But you could definitely look to some of the picks that are available with the Indiana Pacers. Another team who I think is a little bit more enticing, the Houston Rockets. Do you look or call the Houston Rockets? It was being reported not too long ago in this offseason and at the start of this season, the Houston Rockets might be trying to move off of Jalen Green. They entertain, I believe, and y'all correct me if I'm wrong, I believe that the Houston Rockets at one point did entertain the idea of acquiring a Paul George. Y'all correct me if I'm wrong on that, but I do know there has been some type of conversations about the possibility of moving a Jalen Green. If you are the Chicago Bulls, do you entertain that? Because then you're really getting a young player with a lot of upside who just has to figure it out. You know what I'm saying? He's been coming into his own, but you want to see more consistent play from Jalen Green. Still a hell of a player, but you want to see more consistency. Now, again, not the same caliber player of Zach Lavine right now, but at 22 years of age, you could probably take a leap of faith and see what's up with that. Just saying. How y'all feeling about that? And the last thing, what about Golden State? Golden State was trying to get Larry Marketing. Golden State was looking into Paul George. Golden State shot down the Zach Lavine idea early on. But the Golden State Warriors haven't been playing well these last few games. And would Zach Lavine be more enticing? But are the Warriors willing to part ways with a Jonathan Kuminga? I say, you the Warriors. You got about 3 years left. If that, to go and get ring number 5 for Steph Curry and Draymond Green. I think you got to absolutely do that. When you run into Hall of Fame players, superstar players, you got to continuously improve the team and have those players in a position to where they can feel like they can win. Golden State, what are we doing? I understand you got to think about the future, but you got to think about the now too. You got to think about how you want to end or see off your prized possessions. And that's Steph Curry and Draymond Green. How does it work? Will those teams get involved? We shall see. So let me know how y'all feeling. Do y'all think the Indiana Pacers might slide up in here? The Houston Rockets might slide up in here? You know what I'm saying? The Golden State Warriors, those are long shots. Those are just a few of my suggestions that I'm looking around trying to see if it makes sense for the Bulls to get in business with them, because it's really, really tough if you look at other teams and you be like, nah, they don't really need Zach. But these teams, they could very well use a Zach Lavine. Hell, the Chicago Bulls could use a Zach Lavine, even though I do think that it's time to move on. I do. But before we get up out of here, I do got to ask one last question in regards to tonight's game versus the Boston Celtics. Now, it's just a conspiracy theory, so hit me out. I'll be short. I'll be brief. Zach Lavine missed Monday night's game, right? Yep, Monday night versus the Raptors. Y'all seeing I'm looking over there. That's the schedule. He missed that game Monday night. Tuesday, Vooch gets talked about. Wednesday, Lavine gets talked about. What if these was already conversations being made? What if these conversations was already happening and they was like, hey, we could probably get off of Zach. Hey, Rich Paul, tell your man to sit out tonight. Hey, Zach, we're going to sit you, gang. You might be on the move. I'm just saying. And now that this is out there, and eyes are on Zach Lavine, I'm pretty sure Zach Lavine and Rich Paul is very well aware that these next few games going to mean something. Not just for the win and losses column for the Chicago Bulls, but for Zach Lavine and his play. More eyes are going to be watching. They looking at Zach Lavine like, oh, 22 points per game scorer, 50% from the field, 40% from the three, or close to it. What are you going to do against the number one team in the East, the defending champions, tonight? So my question is, do you guys expect a 40-piece out of Zach tonight? Do you expect a 40-piece out of Zach Lavine tonight? I say Zach Lavine go for at least 30 tonight. If he plays, at least 30 tonight. All eyes are watching. All eyes are watching. And I'm interested to see what he do with this opportunity. Because I think it's a major opportunity for him and the Chicago Bulls. But hey, that is it for me today, ladies and gentlemen. Thank y'all so much for tuning in. Before you get up out of here, leave your feedback, comment, concerns down in the comment box. The voicemail line is open. If you want to be a part of the mailbag episode, call in, state your name, leave your tape. The number to do so is 773-242-9219. Let me know why y'all think the Chicago Bulls should not allow the Denver Nuggets to walk away from the trade table. Let me know how y'all feeling about that. But that is it. Make sure you see red. Appreciate y'all. Thank y'all. I'm up out of here. Peace.
Cognac. Gang.